Okay, so today we're going to work on the word problems. Okay, now every single one of these word problems is asking you to set up an equation in order to help solve it. Now, personally, from my point of view, a lot of these questions can be rationalized in just the way you're thinking and come up with the answer. So if I give you a word problem like these on an assignment or a test, you don't necessarily have to set up an equation. If you can figure out the answer without doing that, I'm fine with that. I'm more concerned about your problem solving capabilities with these kind of questions rather than your ability just to create an equation. Okay? So with some of these, I'll show it both ways. How can you reason it out and how do you set up an equation? Okay? So the first problem goes, Enrico delivers pizza for Pepe's Pizza. He earns $15.60 plus 60 cents for every pizza he delivers. How many pizzas does he need to deliver to earn a total of $30? Okay, so I'm going to leave some room on the side here so we can do it both ways, right? So if we want to here is determine how much money he makes. That's the goal, right? So I'm going to use dollar sign here, right? And there's two ways he gets paid, right? He gets paid $15.60 just for showing up, right? Then he also gets paid by how many pizza he delivers. And he gets paid 60 cents a pizza, right? So his combined wage is this plus this. That makes sense, right? So here we have $15.60 plus the money he earns from delivering pizzas. Okay? I'm going to write down just pizzas here, just for now, all right? Now, the issue is we don't know how many pizzas he delivers. That's what the question is asking. The question is asking us, how many pizzas does he need to deliver in order to make $30, right? So how do we calculate his wage for pizzas being delivered? If he delivers one pizza, he makes 60 cents, right? If he delivers two pizzas, he makes 60 cents times two, right? He delivers three pizzas, 60 cents times three. That makes, right? Three pizzas, $1.80. So we don't know how many pizzas he's going to deliver, so I'm going to just put down a P there for that, right? And so I'm going to fill out the rest of this equation, $15.60. And now the question's asking us, hey, he wants to earn $30. So that's how much his wage is. So we just created an equation, all right? And there's not going to be any general formula that I can tell you that everything's going to fall in line. It really depends on the context of the question, right? So you sort of have to come up with an equation for whatever scenario is happening here. Okay. So now, off to the side, let's do it. We haven't solved this equation, but we'll ration it out in our head. How to solve how many pizzas he needs to sell to make that much money. All right. So if I was in grade 9 or grade 8 or even at home, the first thing I probably would do is go, okay, he wants to make $30 and he gets $15.60 for just showing up. All right. So I'd go, okay, I wanted to find out how much money does he need to make from selling pizzas or delivering pizzas. So that would be just 30 minus 15.60, right? So if I grab my calculator, I think that's 1440 if I did that correctly in my head. Right? So 30 minus 1560 is 1440. So he needs to earn $14.40 from delivering pizzas. Right? Does that make sense at that point? Right? Right? So now if he gets paid 60 cents a pizza, how many pizzas does he need to sell? All right, so you just go 1440 divided by 60 cents. That's how much money he makes per pizza. All right? So it tells you how many pizzas he needs to sell. Or deliver, in this case. So 1440 divided by, is it 24? Thank you. Equals 24. So he needs to deliver 24 pizzas. And if you didn't like that, you could also just set up an equation that just said, hey, 1440 is equal to 60 cents times how many pizzas he delivers. You can set up a little mini equation at this point, and you could have divided both sides by 60 and still came up with the same answer. Those are gone. Okay. So these will take some practice, right? Now, if you wanted to solve it, the equation, the actual mathematical steps are the same, right? We're going to solve for a variable. Which number are we going to get rid of first? 1560 or the 60 cents? No. We get rid of the one we have to add or subtract first, right? So we get rid of the 1560. You can get rid of the 60 cents, but it just makes it a little bit harder. So how do we get rid of the 1560? We do the opposite, right? So right now, it's positive 1560. You go minus 1560. And when you're adding and subtracting, once per side. Now those cancel out. You're left with 1440 here and 0.60p here. Okay? Now how do you get rid of the 60p? The 60 in front of the p, sorry. How would you get rid of that? We got to do the opposite.
Divide by 60 cents.
Yeah, divide by 60 cents. So divide by 60 cents, divide by 60 cents. The 60s are gone. We're left with p is equal to 24. All right, so you end up with the same answer. So you pick the path that makes it easier for you. Okay? So let's do another one of these. Let's do the bottom one here. Okay? An isosceles triangle with a perimeter of 50.6 has one short side and two equal longer sides. All right, so let's draw an isosceles triangle. Has one short side and two long sides that are the same length. All right, and they're saying that the short side is 10.8 centimeters. Okay, and the question is come up with the equation and figure out how big the other sides are. Right? The other piece of information they give us is the perimeter is 50.6. What does the word perimeter mean again?
All sides.
All sides, right? So the perimeter is the distance around the outside, which they're saying is 50.6. Okay, so let's do this one without setting up an equation first. Right? If we know the distance around is 50.6, and this is 10.8, how big must these be? How must those two missing sides be? Jackson?
Like 27 is each, roughly?
Roughly 27 each?
Like 20 centimeters.
Each. And how did you come up with that number?
10 minus 50 by 2.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to. So you go 50.6 minus 10.8, right? So that tells you how big the missing sides are, right? And so we go 50.6 minus 10.8. That gives, oops, that is not right. 50.6 minus 10.8, 39.8. And what did you do after that, Jackson?
Those two sides are by 2.
Yeah, so there's two sides. They're the equal size, so you just divide it by 2. So you go 39.8 divided by 2 is roughly your answer. You said roughly around 20, right? Right, so 40 divided by 2, right? So but if you go 39.8 divided by 2, we end up with 19.9. So each side is 19.9 centimeters. Okay? And I think most students could probably figure that out without even setting up an equation. You can actually logic it out. If we wanted to set up an equation, right, then in grade 10, it's not until the very end of grade 10 where you start setting up equations. So you get a lot of time to practice next year with it. All right. So here we're talking about perimeter. So perimeter is equal to adding up all the sides. So we have a 10.8, and we have two sides which we don't know. So we'll just call those x's. So perimeter is 10.8 plus x plus x. Okay. So now we need to find out what the value of x is. They told us the perimeter is 50.6, and we have 10.8 plus x plus x. Okay. So we need to solve this. We have two x's here, right? So we need to group those x's together. So if I combine these x's here, what do they combine to form? Bir Pratap?
2x.
Yeah. You remember your polynomials unit, right? 1x plus 1x. You add the numbers in front, right? So this becomes 2x, and the exponents don't change. And you still have that 10.8. And we still have this 50.6. Now, we want to solve this equation. On the side of the variable, we have two numbers that we need to get rid of. Which one you can get rid of first? Yep. And how do we get rid of it? Subtract. So you go minus 10.8 to both sides. Right? So you go 50.6 minus 10.8, which is 39.8. And you're left with a 2x. Okay. So one more step left to go. We need to get rid of that 2. How do we get rid of that 2? Divide. Divide by 2, divide by 2, x, and 39.8 divided by 2 is 19.9. Okay. Now, I'm not going to dictate which way you do it. I'm more concerned at this age for you guys is, can you solve this problem? Does this seem easier to you, or does that seem easier to you? You pick the method that you want. Right? You just got to show your work. Right? Just don't put down a final answer. Right? All right. Does that help? I know it's not easy, but does that help a little bit? Right? So either way, right? And if you go through the steps, if you notice, like what we did here and here are identical. What's the first thing we did is we subtracted. We subtracted. Then we divided by 2. Or we divided by 2. Right? Just whichever way do you see easier. Okay? Okay, let's do, and with all word problems, I didn't do the first one. We should give a little statement. The missing side is 19.9 centimeters. Okay. So the next one, I'm just going to do by setting up equations. All right, not going to rationalize that out, which you guys could do if you wanted to, but I want to practice some equation building skills. So here goes. The cost of a banquet and mixed catering is $215 plus $27.50 per person. So the total cost of the banquet was $2,827.80. How many people were invited? Okay. So let's come up with the equation. So you're shopping around. Me and my wife did this when we were trying to book our wedding, right? And we asked all the venues, like, okay, how much is it going to cost to do our wedding at your place? And basically, it came down to two costs. One cost was rental of the space, right? And here, so they're saying that's $215, right? And the other part was the all depended on how many people showed up because they had to pay for the food, the cost per person. So here, they're charging you $27.50 a person. So if you only had one person attending, it would be the cost of the space plus $27.50. If you have two people showing up, it will be $27.50 times 2. But we don't know how many people are showing up. So we just write down a variable for that. So P for people, right? And you can use X's at this stage. I encourage all my students to use more meaningful letters, right? P and people, you're looking at it, sort of matches up. If you put down an X, that's very generic. So it's harder looking at the equation to figure out what's going on. Okay, so that is the equation to figure out the cost of any party at Nick's Catering. Now this specific party is going to cost this much money. So that's 2780, and it's equal to 215 plus 2750 a person. Okay, what's our first step here? Okay, to solve. Right, on the side of the variable, there's two numbers. Remember that?
I'm going to get rid of the 215.
Yeah, and we do the opposite. So it's positive 215. Opposite of it is negative 215. Right? So minus 215 from both sides. If it helps you, draw the little dividing sign there, separating sign. So now we need to do that calculation. So we got $2,827. Oh, that's not right. 28, 27, and 80 cents minus 215. Oops. 215. We got 2,612 and 80 cents. 2,612 and 80 cents. On the other side, where those are gone, we're left with the 27.50 per piece. Okay. So, last step, solving for p. What do we do with that 27.50? You gotta do the opposite.
Divide.
Divide. It's multiplying the p, so the opposite is to divide it. So we'll divide by 27.50. Divide by 27.50. Okay, those are gone. We're left with just the p. And we just go back to our dividing. So we go 26, 12, and 80 divided by 27.50. And there is roughly 95 people. Right? So we can say there were 95 people at the banquet. Okay, that's it. So, in general, you're going to come up with the equation with a variable. So the variable is what you're trying to find. Right? So that's where your letter comes in. Right? And I'll come around and I'll help you set up the equations. On the assignment, there's only 3 questions, 3 word problems, right?